When is a car review important? For sure, when it's about the world's best-selling car, the Toyota Corolla in the all-new generation. Here on Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars, with Thomas, we're going to take a detailed look on the exterior, interior and the driving experience. And we have all three building styles. Here, for example, the hatch. And we will also compare the estate, so-called touring sports, and also the sedan. This will be so interesting to compare all three versions in exterior and interior. Imagine that Volkswagen would change the name of the Volkswagen Golf to Volkswagen Tennis. Well, that's exactly what Toyota did with this vehicle. The Toyota Corolla, the world's bestseller car, they thought, it's not sexy enough, it stands for like an ordinary vehicle. Let's call it Auris in Europe. So that was the case in the past decade, and then they realized, that's a big fail. Let's call it Corolla again. I think everyone is happy about that. Everyone knows what to get when you drive or when you buy a Toyota Corolla. And so worldwide, this is now again the Corolla. What has changed in this new generation? The front is more aggressive with this wide, let's say, fake opening, because not everything of that is really open. It's rather a styling element. It's also forming somewhat of an X right there, not as X-formish as the Toyota Aygo, but you can imagine it. You get the LED daytime running light in a split and this dramatic headlamp design, and you get different trims of LED lighting. So that's what you get, and also new assistance systems. That's why the Toyota logo is also in 2D. They have to hide the sensors somewhere. What do you think about this new styling? 4 meters 37, 14 foot 3 or 172 inches is the length here of the hatch. We picked this one here as a main vehicle for today because it was the most anticipated one and also looks most spectacular. Also in this sporty trim with a contrasting roof and those big 18-inch rims. Soon we'll show you more details about the estate, the touring sports and also the sedan version. Very interesting it will be, I can promise you. Well, this contrast paint here, it looks cool, but somehow I think it's just a foil, which is then covered with paint because you see this gap here. So you can really feel that there's a second layer over it. It's also the hybrid. We'll soon talk about the engines for sure. Well, the styling is definitely sportier than before, but you can already see that this rear window is very, very flat, forming a strong shoulder here as well. So it looks sporty. But what effect will it have on the luggage compartment? That's a tough question for sure. One very interesting technology aspect is they're using the new TNGA, Toyota New Global Architecture. This platform is promising more stiffness for the chassis. Let's see out how that one turns out for driving later. This generation is a little bit longer, flatter and wider, and clearly at the rear you can see that they wanted to stress this dramatic design of this new generation. Tail lamps here with a nice daytime running light signature. Also remember how the hatch looks in comparison to the other versions. And it's rather bulky in this area here, really forms out from here. And then again, this already told you, this very, very flat window there in the rear. By the way, if you wondered about those number plates here, those are Spanish red plates for those temporary registrations. They look pretty weird, but at least they fit to the vehicle color this time. Oh, yeah, about that. Those are really completely, they have nothing to do with the exhaust system. I think we can also just leave them out if we want to design a honest car or something like that. The real exhaust is underneath that. Or would you like having those on your vehicle? And now to compare the Estate version and the Sedan, we're starting here with the Estate, so-called Touring Sports. This one here is about 30 centimeters longer, 4.65 meters in this case. So the overall length, yes, that promises more space in the trunk. We'll also take a look at the interior in the interior part. But this one here, both the Estate and the Sedan have 6 centimeters longer wheelbase. And that also means that the rear compartment will be a little bit longer. Again, this one we will also find out in the interior part. What you can see on the exterior is that the Touring Sports has the same front as the hatch, whereas the Sedan is a little bit different. We'll show you that very soon. And of course, different here in the roof line. This one here keeps rather straight to be able to pick up more luggage then. What do you think about the design here of the Estate? And for the 3/4 rear perspective, we picked a different color here in silver for the Estate. And there you can see that it's actually quite similar to the hatch in the rear perspective, also with the rather flat window line right here. And then again, also with the tail lamps that have, this very dramatic design. And now to the Sedan here in this very bright blue. It's a blue silverish color for sure. And there you can see, although it's basically technology side the same car, it is different in design in the front. You can see we got some horizontal fins right there, and the headlamps, they look, let's say, a little bit more ordinary, not as spectacular as with hatch and Estate. And overall in design, I think it comes a little bit closer to the mid-size sedan, the Toyota Camry. This one here, the compact sedan. As I said, Estate and Sedan share the same wheelbase length, which is 6 centimeters longer than the one of the hatch. So here the wheelbase is at 2.70 meters. And the rear, again, you can see the scheme that the design here is rather conservative. That's, appealing to the customers because the manufacturers say, our Sedan customers are a little bit more conservative than maybe our hatch and Estate customers, and therefore they also adapt the design. Well, are you a Sedan customer? Are you more conservative? That's why? Well, let's discuss this in the comments. But we can obviously see, that they have adapted the design, that they did not do the same design for all 3 models. Now, which one do you like best from design? Hatch, Estate or Sedan? And which one would you go for? Of course, even more interesting, I can promise you, will be the interior comparison coming soon, where we compare also in the front, but even more important, trunk length, and also the space in the rear compartment for hatch, Estate and Sedan. This is the car key, Corolla logo. Let's check about the door closing sound. I would say like standard, not too good, not too bad. Inside of the doors, this is here soft touch at the inside right here, and I think it's also in a sleek design that's well done. Then the leatherette cover here for your armrest, automatic window levers as well. Then there's basically a sporty trim here with red contrast stitches. There are different trims available and also different colors. This one here, basically the all-sport dark trim. Those seats are completely redesigned. There are different ones available. Those ones are the sport seats, but there are also base seats available where you can move around a little bit more freely, depending on what you wish. Those ones are also with the optional animal skin cover, but I can also show you those later with a fabric cover. And then also other fabric seats, because we had different cars on location. Definitely also very interesting, nice choices there to come. I can soon show you that. Steering wheel, also we've seen it recently in the Toyota RAV4 because it also features this same new platform. On the left lower side you can even see there's a heated steering wheel option available, so interesting options you have for this vehicle too. And of course I want to know, what's the comfort there when I sit down with those new seat forms? Yeah, I would say to me the sport seats are somewhat okay, yes. I'm 1.86 or 6'1", but I also tested the ones I'll soon show you, the ones that are a little bit more open. To me, they are more comfortable. Maybe it's different when you're a little bit smaller. Then maybe the sport seats are more suitable, but that really depends on the individual body type. But what I can say that the fabric surface is somehow cozier for sure. Then headroom is really plentiful, that's no problem, also for tall people. No panoramic roof here at the moment though. Steering wheel can be adjusted manually like this. It's also very good and a smooth process. So you can find a good seating position, and also, been driving the car for the last 2 hours too, and the seating comfort was actually quite nice. The top of the dashboard here is also soft, like this part, only this part here is, this is also soft, but then the very top part, this one is hard. We will soon also take a look at this optional head-up display. I would say it's time that we take a look at this infotainment system too. But last but not least, to the seats, you have an electric lumbar support, and in this case here, manual pump it up, y'all, for the seat, and for the rear part, you just release it, and then you are flexible to adjust that right here. This is the cockpit overview. It is not a clean design at all. There are so many different elements, but the material quality has been upgraded that we can realize. You can also get a leatherette dashboard cover. This soft plush material here is really nicely done. You can get it here in black, but also, I'll soon show you that with the Sedan, in a bright style that also looks really amazing. This is the new 8-inch screen. It stands out a little bit, but then you can also very well see it. Sadly, the software is already outdated right now. Look at the visualization here in the map. That's really not too good. You can pinch and zoom. However, if you not want to use it like this, you have to go here on the left way. I'm not sure why they didn't also put the command here on the right button. That would be easier while driving, and you're like shaking a little bit when you can zoom in with that. That's not possible. Power volume here. Then some shortcuts, for example, for the map. Or for the phone, you can connect it with Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Yeah, about that. In the US, they already have the license for that. Here in Europe, not yet at this moment we're filming the review, but they say that they can retrofit it later as soon as they have cleared the licensing issues. But come on, that should be already on that car, really. But technically, it's of course able to do that. And then there's the home menu. Well, the home screen is customized. Then the main menu, that's like this. Then you also have this app view for that. Well, moving away from the screen, you have still a separate climate unit. I like that, to be able to control the temperature quite easily also while driving. That's something when you do it digitally, it's not getting better. That's, my 2 cents for that. Steering wheel is actually well organized, also with a nice material quality. Right side you have the ACC controls, on the left side some volume control, and then you can also control those instruments right there. They are available with analog style, maybe that way you can see it a little bit better, with a small screen, or those ones here are the digital instruments with a bigger screen. Analog still on the left side, however, and then in the screen there in the middle, you can have some, different stuff in there. If I power up the car, you can have the average mileage, for example, right there, or a compass, some GPS information, and so on. But it's really hard to learn the system. It's very complicated menu structure. You have to do it once, and then you realize, now the combustion engine is getting activated. So far, it was then only in the EV mode. So I think too complicated in display, and also the split between half digital, half analog doesn't make too much sense to me. Then let me turn it off again. We have some more to cover right here, because in the lower part, you can access it right here. This is an inductive charging pad. You have to activate it then. Turn it on again, they can show you those lights as well. And then there's a seat heating if you have that option in high or low, 2 levels for driver and co-driver. Driving mode selector next to the CVT automatic shifting lever. If you want to go in sports mode, you do it like this. I will also tell you. Oh, there's a car behind me. Yeah, let me just finish this sentence. And an electric handbrake right there, as well as some cup holders, but they're not really adaptive, but they go deep enough that you can do some stuff with it. So you guys wondered why someone was behind us horning us. Well, we are, yes, in the middle of a road, but it's a remote road. This is basically here, a dead road area. Nothing is here, and those are roads that are not being used. It's the first time ever I was here, and I was here like 5 or 6 times, that there was a car coming actually. So I was also quite surprised that this happened. Well, that's Autogefühl live on tape. Live on tape is also the shake test for the armrest. Well, it's a nice leatherette soft cover. And also you see here the shake test has been improved. If you compare it to the previous generation, it's definitely well attached. And you can also here put it like this, that it stands upright. And then on the inside there, let me give you some light. There's a 12-volt power supply next to a secondary USB supply. Oh, there's a Wi-Fi router for us here. Nicely done. And of course, everything else you want to put in there. The first USB device is in the very front, right up next to the inductive charging, but a little bit hidden. One of the technology highlights is the new head-up display. It's a real one. It's projected directly into the windscreen, for example, with the allowed speed, the current speed, and maybe, some more info depending on what you want to see there. What about the rear door? You can see in this black design, by the way, here on the rear door is all hardpack. Interesting bottle holders here, by the way. They're quite handy, I think. And then the soft leatherette cover, you get that one also for the rear seats. And you can also see that there's not too much room on the back side here. Seat design is actually the same, also depending on the trim you pick. Let me get inside. And when the seat is set to my driving position, you can see I do hit my knees on the back part of the seat. I still somewhat fit in here, but it wouldn't be really comfortable on long-term run. And headroom, that does work. So my hairs are hitting the ceiling, but I could still put a hand over my head. So that's quite okay still. But again, not that comfortable. And also in this dark style, it really is dark in here. You can see it yourself. That's also one of the reasons I recommend a bright interior with a bright ceiling. That's pretty cool. You will soon see that. And of course, soon the differences to the Estate and the Sedan here in the rear, because that will be a difference. Isofix on the outside of the seat if you want to install some child seats. But again, it will be quite cramped in here if you want to do that. As well as some bottle holders right there. They're not adaptive, so the kids might spill something in there. So beware of that. Well, there's a climate unit also in the middle part, but you cannot see it because I'm too cramped in here. I can't move any further. Those sport seats are also quite voluminous. I think it would also be a little bit better when you go for the non-sport seats here for the result in the rear. And here we can see that the very same seat, the sport seat with the red contour stitches, is also available with fabric on the inside, some Alcantara accentuations and leatherette on the outside, so there's also a sustainable mix available. This one, by the way, is standard then in the higher trims for the hatchback, because I want to position the hatchback in a rather sporty way. The animal skin seat we had then, our main vehicle for today, is just an option, so this is what you then normally get. And of course, climate comfort-wise, a better solution. And you also don't slide on that one so much. So Toyota indeed offers a lot of interesting choices in that respect. And I just love to show you a lot of variation when we have the possibility to. This one here is also the hatchback with the seat, which is already kind of sporty, but not as sporty as with the red contour stitches and the Alcantara applications and so on. This one pure fabric. And really interesting what I've done with the head restraint there. It looks like it would be completely integrated head restraint from the visual part, but it's actually not. You can see here. So I think a nice trick they've done there. Now to the interior of the sedan. Here I picked one trim, which I really like because it has bright interior here at the side. This one here is hardpack at the inside of the doors. This one here is soft fabric. But I really like to have some bright style in the interior as changed to, all black, all black. Also at the upper, here's this middle dashboard area is also bright. On the left side it's hardpack. But you can also see, if you look over right there next to the infotainment screen, this is a bright leather red cover for the dashboard. Very interesting. And I also picked this one here because I want to show you a fabric seat style. This one would be my recommendation for today. It is staying cooler in summertime and also more sustainable. But this one here, very interesting, also has a bright upper area. And again, together with the bright ceiling, this really makes your car life a lot lighter. I really liked it. Well, what about you? But, in general, you can see that the front dashboard layout is all the same for all Corolla versions. Now the rear of the sedan, you can see again the fabric seats, same style as in the front, Isofix, and then also this bright upper area. And you can also see this wave structure on the inside. This also helps them with climatization and is really comfortable to sit on. So really a great combination for those seats. But now it gets even more interesting. What about the space I have for my knees and also for my head here in the sedan in the rear? You can see, as expected, has the same legroom as the Estate. So both Estate and the sedan have, well, those are actually the 6 centimeters you have more in wheelbase in comparison to the hatch. That's what you have in knee room here. So that's then also fine if you're traveling with 4 tall adults. Headroom here is still quite okay for me with 1.86 m or 6'1". I can put my hand over my head still, although it's a sedan with the falling roof line. So that's still quite a good result. Yes, my hair are touching the ceiling, but that's still okay. Maybe I have to put a little bit off then, maybe. Well, but I think that's overall a good result. So you can very well use this one here also with 4 tall adults. So I think if you design-wise prefer the sedan, you'll be just fine also here with the interior. Now to the interior of the Estate. But my first point is, just take a look at those seats here. Those ones are also sporty seats, but with shoulder sport, but they are just in black fabric. This one is also, I would rather recommend, more animal friendly, and they also offer you more climate comfort, and they're really, very well done. Total new seats here for the all new generation. This is then just, let's say, the plain black style. Well, in the front, they are all the same, hatch, Estate and sedan, so this doesn't make any difference. In the front, they are also basically using everything, of the same parts. The question is rather, what about the rear? Because this one here, the Estate, has a longer wheelbase, as I said earlier. And we were pretty much cramped in the rear. As for the hatch, at least if you drive as a tall driver, and there it is. This increased wheelbase, that one here is then possible to sit here also as a tall adult, or maybe like with 4 tall adults at the same time. And headroom here, it was very close in the hatch. It is also pretty close here, but it works. Can put a hand over my head. Those Estates nowadays, they also have a lot of design focus, so they don't offer too much headroom anymore. But again, with 1.86 m or 6'1", it still does work. So if you compare it to the hatch, definitely a little bit more flexible already here in the rear. That's also the reason why they put the wheelbase here 6 centimeters longer. And now to the hatch of the hatch. And this is now the price of this flat rear window. If you want that design, then you lose in height right here. You can see, well, they have limited the loading still, so whatsoever. The battery is accessible here from the rear. It's actually quite nice to access then if you change it at some point or so. I guess a replacement tire would also fit in here somewhere. Does it? I'm not exactly sure. Well, because of the battery. Not exactly sure indeed. Well, there we go. You see how limited it is in height here. The rest is quite okay actually, if we take the measures right here. So the length is 75 centimeters or 74. You will soon also see the difference then to the Estate and to the sedan, which will be longer. And this one here is about 1 meter in width. We can also flip those seats, soon show you, but here, you can see right here, it's just like 20 centimeters, even below that. And then just when you get to the outside here, a little bit higher, then it's about 39 centimeters. And we indeed had some problems, for example, when we were putting like a cabin trolley in here. And if we then put a backpack over there, and then this one is also, this is cover. You can, of course, remove it. But then we already had problems when closing it, because you see here, that's not enough in height then. And also we, Jonah's big camera bag, when it was like here, then it was not closing at this stage here, and then we had to push it all the way back. And those things you really have to remember. So it is somewhat limiting as for that. Then, let me flip the seats. There we go. Have to put the front seat in the front first. But that's also, something to check when we put the front seat all the way in the front. It's not possible to do it like this way all the way. That's the maximum possible then. As for the rear part of the seat, at least you can load things through in that way. Can you also reach over here? Well, it's tricky, but it is somewhat possible. And here we go. So that's the maximum stuff you can get out of the hatch then. To my driver's seat. It's then, even a little bit longer. To the driver's seat, it's about 150 meters. And, well, when you reach it through, then you can actually get a little bit longer. Then you can also get 2 meters, but then only to the, almost to the shifting stick, like this. So, yeah, you can still do a lot of things with this car, yes, but you have to remember this limitation in the height, especially in the rear area. And it's always, this game, design versus capacity. Let's take a look also how the sedan and the estate play out there. What is the limitation of the sedan? Well, it is somewhat the trunk in the flexibility, because first of all, you have this loading sill. This is of course not that handy, but then again, of course, otherwise you would lose even more height, and it's basically, a black hole to put things in. This is the disadvantage. You can also fit a replacement tire down here. There's enough space. This one here, not this option. This is just a repair kit. But the interesting thing is now, what about the length? So, remember it was 75 centimeters for the hatch and about a meter for the estate. And you can see here, it's 1 meters and 5. So you can compare this also a little bit to the estate, maybe just a couple of centimeters even longer here. Also in the width, you got just over a meter between there, so like 1 meters 5, 1 meters 10. So yes, you can very well use it, but then you're limited just in the height here, which is at about 52 centimeters. So now we got everything also from the interior. Which one would you actually pick from the interior? Of course, the estate is the most practical one interior-wise. But then again, if you prefer the exterior styling of a sedan, that might be tricky. And here comes the loading master with the estate, or touring sports. Sports touring. Is it touring sports? Touring sports, yes. Always confused with those marketing names. So, the length here. This is, of course, a difference, 1 meter and 2. And the hatch would be ending right here. So that's why you have this additional length of the vehicle to get more trunk out of it. And, of course, a little bit more height. Well, but you can see, for, let's say, a loading master estate, right here, it's already closed with about 40 centimeters. But here then at, here's about 45 or something-ish. It's not too high. Then you can lift this one up. You can also fit a replacement tire in there. You can see there's enough space. Then there is this cover right there. That's actually quite well done with this rail right there. You can see. Clean solution. But again, you see how short the cover, the top cover is. That's why, and I think, for the estate versions, I would prefer less design, not so flat rear window, to be able to fit more stuff in there. And you can flip the seats from here. This is a very good mechanism. Awesome. This works better even than in an Audi, for example, in an Audi A4. Here we go. And you can see all flat. And then you can load through even longer things. Also use the ruler for that. Let's see. To the driver's seat, I now have 1 meter 85. So basically my length to the driver's seat. Let's see what we can do with the front co-driver seat. It's not possible to flip it all the way to the front. No, that's basically it. And if you compare that, so we get to 2 meters, just like 2 meters and 5 or something. So definitely this is the one you should go for when you have the biggest luggage to transport. But then of course there are more factors that play a role if it's hatch, estate versus sedan. Very interesting here, those comparisons, aren't they? By the way, you know, at Autogefühl we like to go in detail. You might remember here in the trunk with the hatchback, that was very interesting, there was the battery. And that's the reason, because a 2-liter hybrid takes so much space in the front that you have to put the battery here in the rear, and you can only fit optional a small replacement tire. But it's different for the other engines. This one here, for example, is the hatch with the 1.8-liter hybrid, which is a little bit smaller. Then the battery is also in the front, and you can see here there's a loading sill, so you have more trunk capacity in height, but then you have a loading sill that goes down, so it's pro and con both. And you can see you could theoretically also fit a replacement tire space-wise, but obviously it's not really meant to be that way. There's also, tire repair kit here, but you can see there's not battery here. So again, you have some more space in height. But then again, it's also good not to have a loading sill. Well, but I think it's a really interesting technical detail that the trunk changes on the size of the engine and where the battery is being put there. Pretty interesting, right? So let's take a look under the hood. Whoa, we don't have hydraulic struts. So this one here is the 2-liter hybrid with 180 horsepower, 7.9 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. You can also get, in the US at least, a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine without the hybrid, then with 168 horsepower. In Europe, this one only with the hybrid, or also in the US, of course. And then there's a 1.8-liter hybrid with 122 horsepower and a 1.2-liter turbo with 116 horsepower and the manual hand drive. Well, those hybrids here then are always combined with a CVT, a continuously variable transmission. That's a special form of automatic. We will also experience that in the driving part. It's really interesting, no diesels, just one turbo. The other one's always, when it's a hybrid, then it's combined with a naturally aspirated petrol engine. And they use those special batteries, not the lithium ion as, let's say the big-time normal electric vehicles today. Well, big-time normal electric is rather this, because Toyota has been producing them really on the mass scale, and they are using nickel metal hydride batteries, and they are, a little bit cheaper to produce and also better for this use case, which is basically charge and power all the time, front and back, really all the time. And so they basically support the basic front axle drive. It's all front-wheel drive platform. And then either it's just supporting it, or it's running purely electric, but just, on a very, short route inside a city, couple of seconds again. Then maybe the combustion is getting on again and off again. So we'll experience that in the driving part, but that's just, how it basically works. Now to Thomas's driving lounge with the all-new Toyota Corolla, and we're starting here very slowly because I'm in the EV mode. So this is the inbuilt hybrid. You cannot recharge it. Typical Toyota system with a nickel metal hydride battery. So those are actually a little bit more durable than the lithium ion when you have constant charging and recharging and so on. I have to get on here, sorry. But now, for example, when I'm going uphill, you can also hear the combustion engine sets in, and at higher speeds only the combustion engine is running. This EV mode is really primarily done for the city traffic when you're rolling, stop and go, and so on. And then you can indeed also, save a lot of fuel. By the way, I'm putting the map off here at the moment for the GPS because it's flickering on screen, just on camera. It's not flickering in real life. That's, always depends on the camera and the resolution rate of those monitors. However, in those digital instruments, They are half digital, as I showed you earlier. You also have some GPS info. If you face the next intersection, then you can see something of that. It's really interesting also with those blue rings to see them while driving. However, again, the whole layout of this cockpit is somehow a little bit confusing while driving, I think. So one of the key new things here is the new so-called Toyota New Global Architecture, this new platform, and that gives you some more agility while driving because the platform is stiffer and it's actually quite nice to drive it here. You can see also here in this first corner. Gives me a good feeling, although we have the normal suspension here, so this is the just plain normal suspension. There's also the adaptive suspension available, but it's always good to know also how the normal stuff is actually doing. To me, that's always very interesting. So we have some motorway traffic here as well, and we'll also show some countryside driving. So far, here at about 80 kilometers an hour, it's also quite silent. As for the noise insulation, that's also one of the key things they have addressed here recently. Oh, interesting. In this GPS map, we can also see those. The speed camera is indicated. I don't think it's even. I think in Germany it's not allowed to have that, but we're not driving in Germany today, so I get those speed camera indications. Pretty interesting for sure. So we also have, for example, adaptive cruise control built in here. I can set the speed, and now the car is just keeping the distance here to the car in front of us. So it's working well so far. There's also available the blind spot monitor. You can see the yellow flashing then when someone is overtaking us. So that's about to happen soon now again. Here we go. And we're now using turning indicators. It's also not only constantly, but then, you know, changingly flashing, so to say. I think we'll take the next exit. So I'm always going back for the GPS and it doesn't flicker on the screen because it's pretty annoying to look at. So, good assistance systems we have available here too. And, well, when is the EV mode also available? When I get off the throttle here. So, now at the moment I see an EV mode symbol here. The car is just rolling, so to say, coasting then. Then the EV mode is being activated and also we gain some battery power back, so recuperation is working. You can also have a view here in those digital instruments where I can see what's being done. For example, at the moment the front wheels are being powered. At the same time something off the battery. Now when I lift off the throttle, I can see just power is being redirected to the battery. I think it's quite distracting to look at it while driving. Maybe just when you're driving slowly or something. But they add this feature to, you know, give you some more insight as for that. So what about some acceleration? Driving here the 2-liter hybrid with 180 horsepower. The acceleration figure is 7.9 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. Well, we have this sport mode where RPMs are turned up a little bit higher. When we do some acceleration now from 80 to 120. Let's see, and let's go. There we go. And you maybe heard this is a typical CVT, the continuously variable transmission automatic acceleration, where it's more like because this system here, this automatic gearbox system, does not have, let's say, a real gear, real separate gears. You do have some shifting pedals here you can use to shift up or down, but it's basically imitating this gear ratio. That's primarily when you want to go downhill and want to have an engine brake or something. But other than that, the CVT transmission works in a way that it's basically one gear, and that's also the reason why you don't have like this this rather satisfying acceleration sound. This one then, when you accelerate hard, it's not that pleasant. But then again, when you drive it inside the city and so on, it's actually quite nice because it's smooth and makes you rather calm. By the way, the noise insulation here, you have to compare it to other cars we drive here on Majorca, on those motorways, because this tarmac right here is rather rough. So you cannot always rate that then when you drive on a very, very, sleek tarmac surface. You always have to take that in mind. But definitely a little bit more silent than the previous generation, that we can say. And it gives me more stability also when we're here at higher speeds. It's a normal suspension, so it leans a little bit to where I'm steering then. But then again, I think it's so far a good compromise. Looking forward to how it will behave when we are soon on the, on some outskirts road, and see when we have some bumps and so on. But again, it gives me more sporty driving feeling than before. So with this new platform, the Corolla is a little bit more fun to drive. Comfort here and seating is so far also quite nice. Besides that, I'm starting to sweat a little bit on those animal skin seats. But the fabric seats have the same form. Actually, there are the sport seats available and the normal seats. The normal seats are a little bit more open. Those ones here cage a little bit in more. That's just a matter of preference for sure. But the seat form itself is quite comfortable. This is also a step forward they've done here in this new generation. So, it's not the motorway car for sure, but it has even become better in that respect, yes. Overview, you have to say, is for sure not the best. To the rear, it's quite okay due to this big main rear mirror. Then again, the dramatic design on the exterior always leads to that, the view is a little bit blocked, especially here the B pillar. Therefore, it's so crucial to have this blind spot monitor to be able to see then. And also to the rear sides, really limited. The only thing they changed here for the better, as for the overview in a new generation, is that the hood is a little bit flatter than before, so you have a little bit, better view to the front or lower. Say, when is this and there ending or something. So that has been improved as for this one. So those are the motorway impressions. Let's get off that one and, have a little bit more fun on the countryside road. Now to some countryside driving. That's of course a lot of fun, and again it proves my point that this new generation is more fun to drive. By the way, if you think about the Estate and the Sedan in driving, which have a 6 centimeters longer wheelbase, this is not such a big difference. You will maybe note a little difference, but usually with those compact cars, they rather drive similar. So it won't be the biggest difference in driving. Of course, at a later stage, we can also, sometimes also show you some extensive look at those in driving too. As for the consumption, well, the big advantage of a hybrid drive system is rather in the city with a lot of stop and go, when we have more countryside and motorway driving, and that's also what the long-term consumption is rather about. So yes, you will save some fuel inside the city and also save some emissions right there. Got some curvy or winding roads here, and it's really a lot of fun. So I think that the improvement in driving fun is one of the best things they've done here with this all-new generation. The steering, by the way, also gives a rather good feeling. It has a direct input. It doesn't have any dead zone here in the middle. Directly something is happening. Also very precise to look at where I'm steering and what's happening in the corner. A little bit on the brakes, so it's very finely tuned. Also, I'm very convinced of this normal suspension. Yes, the adaptive suspension gives you some more flexibility, and you can choose between sporty and softer setup. But here, you'll be just fine with the normal engine. I've shown you that when I put this shifting lever to the left, you have some more RPMs going. Then again, what you can also do is change the drive mode. And if you would have the adaptive suspension, then also the stiffness was changed. Here I can go to the eco mode, then the throttle input is being reduced to be able to save some more fuel. And also this EV system is reacting a little bit more spontaneously. Here, for example, now I'm letting the car roll. EV mode is being active. Then I can also drop the suspension, the consumption just a little bit. But I can also go to the sports mode, then get some more RPMs, more throttle input, And this is maybe something you would go for when you are preparing for some overtaking maneuver. Or if you're going in the normal one, then you can also just use the shifting pedals here and drop down in a way that you have more RPMs when you're about to accelerate. And last but not least, there's also the EV mode button you can press. Always, let's say you want to use that when approaching the neighborhood or something, but when I'm here in the higher speeds, yes, it is going to EV mode when I leave the throttle, but in general, the full EV mode is not available. It says here, speed range extended. So, and I can press it again. There it goes at about 50. Let's see where the threshold is. It's about 55 kilometers, obviously. Yeah, that's the threshold. So let's see if I go to 56. Yeah, it's 55 kilometers an hour is the threshold where you can activate or go into this EV mode. And this is pretty helpful then if you want to use as much of the battery as possible when you're like parking in and out. That's also what I find cool with this car. We're rolling. We're turning off the GPS again, that you don't have this flickering anymore. And this is really cool, absolutely silent. Here over those speed bumps, I cannot go fast anyway, I have to be careful. And then we can really use the full advantage of this vehicle. And the longer, of course, you drive in the EV mode, the more the consumption gets better. This is also pretty cool. That's again proving, as long as I'm just running on the motorway, it's basically staying the same. But now, as soon as I use this battery, maybe, got some energy before that, and now we're really using it. Now we're getting close to a consumption of 7 liters on 1 kilometer, and that's already a little bit better then. That would be then more up in the 30 plus mpg range, and already closing towards the 40 plus UK mpg range. So it really depends on where and how you are using this car, how much sense the hybrid really makes. All the way just in EV mode, because I'm not really accelerating, just keeping it steady. This is really cool. So I can, if I now activate or deactivate the EV mode, it doesn't really make any difference. It's just when you have the EV mode put in, that the car really knows what you intend. Whoa, what is burning right there? I think now we have to turn left. Yes, indeed. Now at the next stop sign, and all the way. No emissions there from the exhaust, really good. Yeah, now at the end of the acceleration, so I want to go a little bit quicker. Then also the ICE was turning in again. So it's a constant change then when you're accelerating, but as soon as you're just rolling, then you can just really live with this EV. Let me just turn on the EV mode and check out that one again. So now I'm in the EV mode. And let me accelerate just a little bit more and see if it stays in the EV mode. No, that's the same here also. As soon as I go a little bit harder on the throttle, car goes back also to the combustion engine. But if you're in the EV mode, at least the car knows this preference. Although I don't see, too much of a difference, because the car is doing that on its own basically already. So, but I think when we sum up the driving part here just a little bit, the EV mode really makes sense in the city. It's good to be able to drive silently without emissions locally. Also helps you to bring down the consumption in the overall mix. So now we are up down to about 7 liters on 1 kilometers in our mix here. Then again, on the motorway or countryside road, the hybrid doesn't play too big of a role, but with this new architecture, stiffer chassis, more fun to drive, a precise and direct steering wheel, so that's very well done, and also a little bit better noise insulation. So I think got a lot of different small points where they have really improved the ride here of the all-new Corolla.
Indeed, we had some more situations where we could very well use the EV mode, or the recuperation, or this
some transitions where we had, some more electric driving there. And that indeed brought the consumption down to about 6 liters on 100 kilometers as the average for our test here today. That's 39 mpg or 47 UK mpg. And I think that's then a pretty good result. That's about a liter less than we would have like with those typical 2-liter turbo engines for a compact vehicle or so. I think you can live with that, and it's also somehow fun to use this hybrid drive. You have those electric moments, so to say, and that's always somehow also rewarding, and it's really cool when you drive all silent in the city.
We got the Sedan for you guys. Yes. So, very interesting. First of all, this one is the 1.8 liter hybrid, so it's a little bit smaller hybrid, 122 horsepower, 10.9 seconds is the acceleration figure instead of 7.9 with the 2-liter hybrid. So, yes, it's not that fast. But this one will also be, playing a major role, this engine, on the world market. And this one here, the Sedan, there are basically two key things to remember if you compare the hatch and the estate. First of all, estate and sedan have the same wheelbase. So as for the agility, wheelbase, chassis-wise, they are the same. But the sedan, both also in comparison to the hatch and the estate, here the sedan gets a softer suspension because they set all the sedan out for a more luxurious, more elegant, more comfortable driving. And the same as for the seats we've shown you earlier. Those seats here are more open. They're not that, sporty, caged in. And to me, that's more comfortable. Of course, it always depends on. And we have this bright interior here. Depending on the market, you can only get this bright leatherette cover, for example, only for the sedan. But it really depends on market specifications. But that's also, again, the thing that I said, hatch is so sporty, so we keep it rather black and dark. And the sedan is, really elegant, so maybe more want to keep it with a bright interior. Very interesting as well. So, and what do we feel? Well, first of all, again, with the seats, it's a more open, comfortable experience, less sporty. You feel a little bit more relaxed just, and don't think, I want to attack the road or something. The steering is basically all the same. Indeed, you feel that the suspension is softer, so they really found a very comfortable setup here. It's not that the normal suspension in the hatch or in the estate would be uncomfortable. It's also a very good mix, but this one here definitely more for driving straight and just relaxing and evening out more of the bumps and so on. But still, when I'm here taking those corners, it still feels quite good. However, you have to think about what is more important for you. If you have a lot of fun in driving a little bit faster and also some winding countryside roads, for example here now, then the suspension of the hatch would give me a little bit more feedback and the seat of the hatch would keep me a little bit tighter, So that's then the pro for the hatch customer. And here, when I'm going on long motorway routes, I can more, move around more freely, and also some softer suspension that would be better for that customer. So it really depends on what is your expectation for the car and what is your primary use. Well, and then this 1.8 liter hybrid, as long as you keep it rather steady and calm, you don't feel too much of a difference. Yeah, it has less horsepower and a little bit less displacement, so when you punch it on the motorway, then of course, you have less acceleration. That really depends on when you think about, driving fast on the German motorway, it makes sense to have more horsepower. If you think about more like traffic jams in, for example, in Japan, or think about motorways in US with low speed limit, then it doesn't make too much of a difference. Then it can also make sense that you just say, I keep it with the price a little bit lower, pick the smaller hybrid, and whatever, I don't need this, that has this hard acceleration. In some markets, the sedan is even not sold with the most powerful engine. It's just then coming with a 1.8 liter hybrid. That's again their market strategy by Toyota to say sedan, keep it relaxed, keep it rather slow, elegant, luxurious and stuff. And with the hatch, yeah, sporty, attack mode, seats, suspension, stronger engine and so on. One other key element is of course now, do I feel the longer wheelbase? It's just like this much more, which is making a big difference for the rear legroom. But driving wise, it's really hard to say. So I would rather say that the main difference is really in the suspension setup and in the steering setup. That is the thing you feel more than actually, you would experience something with the longer wheelbase. The wheelbase doesn't make too much of a difference while driving. It's really just rather the suspension setup. And that also means that estate and hatch also come quite close. But the sedan is actually, what we already saw on the exterior, more different than estate and hatch, as basically forming one group.
Here with the 1.8 hybrid, we could even score lower consumption figures, lower than 4.5 liters or more kilometers, or that's more than 50 US MPG or more than 60 UK MPG. So that's of course really, really good. It always depends also, on the topography for sure, but you can see if you want and if you have, the right terrain for that, that's really possible, really impressive. I think we hardly ever had a car with this consumption figure. And now to our conclusion for today. Toyota Corolla hatch, sedan, estate, this all new generation. Well, in the front you can see hatch and estate look pretty much the same. Also the suspension setup is the same for those two. The sedan rather has a softer suspension for a more comfortable ride, but all are very comfortable to drive, and they are sportier than the predecessor generation because they all share this new stiffer platform. This is, one of the key factors. Better noise insulation, also better material quality on the interior, and a lot of great fabric seat choices. Really love to see those variations here with all of the three models, especially also the bright style here for the sedan. As for the rear compartment, you hardly have some space then left in the hatch. That's a disadvantage also in the trunk because of this design focus of the rear window. Little bit also counting for the estate, but you remember sedan and the estate, they have a little bit longer wheelbase, so they have more rear legroom that also 4 tall adults can easily sit in there. And of course the estate is our luggage compartment king. Even though it doesn't have a real box at the rear, it still offers the best flexibility. The sedan also a longer trunk of course than the hatch, but then you're limited in height there a little bit. The hatch then, the most limitations. However, this one is also the sportiest drive. The wheelbase difference doesn't make too much of a difference, it's more the suspension setup. So the question is really what you want, what is the most important for you. The sportiest ride with this one there, and also, the shortest car, best for the city. Then the sedan would be the most comfortable, luxurious ride if you have long highway turns, for example. And the estate if you want the most luggage compartment, but still wants, a little bit sportier ride than with a sedan. Those would be, the main characteristics of those vehicles. It was really so interesting to see all three. And 2 of those we could also drive today. I hope you really liked our comparison here too. And please tune in next time to Autogefühl.